With our country up against something that daunting and that scary and that dangerous for the country, I think bad decisions will inevitably happen. Mistakes will be made.
All right, the fallout of the hiring of Ronna McDaniel over at MSNBC continues. And last night, this person got to have their say. It's Rachel Maddow. Is it there? Is that the appropriate? I'm not sure where things stand with Rachel Maddow. I want to play it safe. I'll just leave pronouns out. Rachel Maddow had Rachel Maddow say. And I just want you to know that this isn't really about partisan politics. It's not about Ronna McDaniel being a Republican. No. This is about election interference.
And this project is now ongoing, right? Now the project is to tell the American people that those efforts around the 2020 election were righteous. That 2020 election, it wasn't okay. Those election results were not correct. We shouldn't believe American elections. We shouldn't believe American elections are real elections. American election results should not be seen as real. They should not be respected. That's the project now, right?
Hold on. I'm gonna let you finish, Rachel. I just need to chime in here and just know exactly. Are you referring to the 2016 election when that's all we heard from Hillary Clinton and Jamie Raskin and Adam Schiff, and you, for that matter, for many years after the 2016 election, claiming that the election was stolen due to Russian interference? You remember that was you, Rachel. I know you very well. And all of your colleagues, of course. Is that the election you're referring to, that American elections cannot be trusted because the results are being rigged by Putin? Oh, it's the 2020 election that you're now daring. I'm sorry. That's right. And it's not the 2004 election when you and John Kerry and all the Democrats said that Diebold election voting machines in Ohio were rigged to help George Bush and the military-industrial complex? Or was it the 2000 election when you said that the entire thing was rigged because Clarence Thomas in the Supreme Court overturned the recount in Florida and the hanging chads? I can't keep it straight. Because those elections, you assured all of us, were not to be trusted, those American elections. The hypocrisy is so strong. But I'm going to let you finish. Like I said, I'm going to let you finish.
I mean, it didn't work to overthrow the government the last time, but as long as you can build on that first effort, as long as you can keep up the anti-election mythology, then you are priming your people. You're priming the American public to not accept the results of the next election either. You're telling them that they're going to need to take power by other means because the election isn't going to be how we do it anymore. You're also priming people, honestly, to vote to give up this supposed democracy we have, because what good is it anyway? Right? So what are we really losing if we decide we're going to lose this? Who cares? Elections are fraudulent here anyway. Who cares if we give them up?
Well, Ronna McDaniel getting hired by MSNBC or NBC News suddenly brings this out of these people, that's how dangerous she is as chairwoman, as a pretty feckless and ineffective chairwoman of the RNC, and this is how they're reacting. Like it's the end of it all. By the way, if we've all been primed to just take back power by whatever means necessary and who cares about elections, then why are we participating in this election at all if we don't believe that elections can be trusted? All I talk about on a regular basis is vote, get out there and vote, overwhelm them with your votes. If we felt more confident in our process, there wouldn't be any concerns afterwards. Maybe, Rachel Maddow, if unlike places like, South Africa and Afghanistan, we had election results on election night, we'd feel a little better about the process going forward. Maybe you should worry about the fact that people don't trust the results because of the process in place right now. But no, we're not going to spend any time focusing on that. You understand that as she talks to her audience, who is exclusively a group of people who already agree with her, what she does in painting Trump supporters, Trump voters, Republicans in general, understand. In fact, let me rephrase that. This isn't really about Trump or Trump supporters. It's the Republican brand, because we're talking about Ronna McDaniel here. Imagine if MSNBC or NBC News actually thought about hiring a conservative contributor who actually had a pretty strong and effective message. No offense to Ronna McDaniel. I don't want to kick her while she's down. If anything, I'm here sort of defending her. But, if I wanted to pick somebody to go upset the apple cart over there at the Peacock, she wouldn't be the first on my list. And that's the point. You see, this is about Republicans. It's about you if you dare to vote Republican. And what she's doing in communicating this to her audience, exclusively not Republicans, is she's making you the enemy in your own home. If you know someone in your life or in your family or extended family that watches MSNBC and is liberal, this is what they're getting. They're being told on a nightly basis that you want to violently overthrow the country and do away with the democratic process and any elections going forward. That's what she's saying about you. And she's saying it to your friends and family members who watch. You wonder why we're so divided in this country? Do you ever notice when we talk about politics here on this show, and honestly, I want to say most right of center platforms, whether it's at all of our town hall sites or whether it's in talk radio. Generally speaking, when we criticize Democrats, we're criticizing elected officials. We're criticizing the people who are in power, whether in the government or in places of influence and power like academia or entertainment and what have you. It's not about the individual Democrats who have a picture of John Kennedy on the wall because that's how their families always voted, or loved Barack Obama because he made them feel good about themselves. It's not about them. They're wrong, but they're not the problem. But see, for her, I used a pronoun, I'm sorry. For NBC News, you are the problem. That's what she's communicating here. And that's a look. And it continued.
And this is a difficult time for us as a country. And I think that means we need to be clear-eyed about the implications of it. Difficult times make for difficult decisions. We are contending with something we've never had to contend with before. In the news business, yes, we are covering an election, which we do all the time, but we're also covering bad actors trying to use the rights and privileges of a democracy to end democracy. The chief threat among them now is not the rioters and the kooks, but the slick political professionals who are turning their considerable talents to laundering violently revolutionary claims that America's elections aren't real, that election results aren't real, and that they shouldn't be respected. We are contending with this now, not from William Dudley Pelley's brown shirt militias, right? But from the multi-billion-dollar massive political operation of one of the two governing parties of the United States of America. And that's new. And with our country up against something that daunting and that scary and that dangerous for the country, I think bad decisions will inevitably happen. Mistakes will be made. But part of our resilience as a democracy is going to be recognizing when decisions are bad ones and reversing those bad decisions.
So that's Rachel Maddow on NBC News, basically using her power. I think she may be the highest paid person, certainly at MSNBC, maybe at NBC News writ large, using her considerable power and influence and her legions of brain-dead supporters to basically force her executives at NBC News to reverse their decision and get rid of Ronna McDaniel. And it's a pretty amazing thing to watch. The lunatics are running the asylum. There was not one voice behind an anchor desk on MSNBC yesterday that said, you know what? I as much as I disagree with her and even dislike her, I think that her voice should be heard because she happens to represent half of the country. Yeah, see, that's really the crux of it, isn't it? The question that needs to be asked to anybody on MSNBC who is flexing all day long, crawling over each other to try to be the loudest person decrying the Ronna McDaniel hire, is that who would you accept? Honestly, who would you accept? And the answer is nobody, because they want to have a one-sided conversation. It's a lot easier to demonize your political opponent as a radical kook, I think she just said. A kook, a violent kook. And she used that word for the people in the streets, not for the people in the boardroom, and not for the people in the Oval Office. No, violent kook is the person who stands up, and this is what they called you when there was a Tea Party movement too. This is what they think of any conservative when you get politically active. You're a violent kook and you need to be silenced. That's why when you post things that you believe on social media, it gets deleted or censored or shadow banned because you're a kook. And it's a lot easier when you're on air at MSNBC to call half of this country a kook when there's not one person sitting there in the room with you who then says, actually, you know what? These are all very good people. They love this country and they see it being destroyed. And I'd like to take the 3 minutes you allow me in this 1 hour program to voice my opinion that reflects what many people out there are thinking. They won't allow that. They refuse to allow it. How good are your ideas if you need to silence any opposition to it? The answer is not very good at all. And there's another perfect example of this phenomenon over on ABC News, on The View. You know, say what you will about Meghan McCain. And I know that, listen, Meghan McCain does not like Donald Trump, did not vote for Donald Trump, and will not vote for Donald Trump. Why? Well, because her dad is John McCain. And I got to tell you something. How can I put this? If Donald Trump said about me the things that he said about Donald Trump, excuse me, let me start that again. If Donald Trump said publicly about me what he said about John McCain, I would be happy to know that my daughters would be angry about that and wouldn't vote for Donald Trump because of it. Honestly, I'm sorry, it's kind of a personal thing. But if you set that aside for a moment, if you think about Meghan McCain's time on The View, she actually did an incredible job speaking on behalf of the people who vote for Donald Trump. There was more conflict and opposition on the panel at The View with regard to Donald Trump during the Trump presidency, voiced by a person who didn't even like Donald Trump. But she was at least able to be that person in the room saying, you know what, you guys are saying this stuff, but you're missing what's going on out there in this country. There are a lot of women who are watching us right now in Ohio and in Iowa that think very differently, and they think that you're the problem. You're sitting here in Manhattan in your comfort, and you're making fun of them, and that voice is no longer welcome on The View. Think about that for a minute. And so yesterday, we had them basically confirming exactly what their method of operation is, which is the Ronna McDaniels of the world are no longer welcome to be heard. Why? Because they speak on your behalf. Watch.
So I leave it to y'all. What do you think?
Look, I think she's a shapeshifter, and she says and does what's convenient for her to say and do when it's convenient. She's from Michigan, where the name Romney, which is her name, she used to use. When she was in Michigan, she was a Romney. When she became the RNC chair, and it was under Trump, who did not like Romney, she took out the name Romney. When it was convenient for her to amplify the things that Donald Trump was saying, to amplify the conspiracy theories, to gaslight journalists, to malign journalists, she did that. Now that she's on NBC, she's changed her tune. So I think that Chuck Todd is very right in calling into question on the air. And by the way, kudos to NBC for having Chuck Todd, giving that Chuck Todd had the freedom, or felt he had the freedom to say that on the air, just following that. The head of NBC News is a very good friend of mine from Miami, Cesar Conde. I've known him for over 20 years. I think this was a mistake because you're allowing somebody who was part of the machine, right? A figurehead, a household name, reinvent herself. And I do think that there's credibility issues, and it's up to the host, the journalists, the staff, the viewers to make it known if they are unhappy about it.
Yeah, thank you, Newsbusters. But see, here's the point. You let her on the air, you let her voice her opinion, and then you've got 20 people on the panel saying, yeah, you're wrong about that, and here's why. Why is that hard? Why is that hard? But we've reached a new point now where that person's voice can't even be heard. You know what they call it? They call it deplatform, or you can't give that person a platform, right? I'm angry at NBC News for even giving this person a platform. You know what that means? It means I'm angry at NBC News for even letting that person speak. I refuse to hear that person's voice or opinion. We cannot give them a platform. Again, I ask the same question. If your ideas are so good, then why can't they stand up against one voice in the room? And over at The View, the one voice that they allow from the right is Alyssa Farah, who is a virulent anti-Trump person who doesn't do what Meghan McCain does. She doesn't even go that extra step to say, yeah, but I may not like Donald Trump, but the people actually deserve to be heard. Nope, not on The View. So here's what she had to say.
Well, I mean, kudos to Kristen Welker, we didn't see all the interview, but she did a great job challenging her. She's an incredible journalist. And one point in that interview, Ronna McDaniel starts talking about all these election officials who felt intimidated because they didn't want to certify the election. What she failed to mention is the countless of us who told the truth about the election and faced intimidation and harassment, and people with a lot more power than myself, like Shane Moss and Ruby Freeman and Rusty Bowers, who we know of, who simply did their job to move forward with the election and had their lives torn apart because of it. I feel very strongly, obviously, that there needs to be Republican representation in media. We represent 50% of the country, but there are credible Republicans who never dabbled in this dangerous lie that Joe Biden didn't legitimately win the election, who would be far better served for NBC, could offer the same expertise, but with more credibility. I think of people like Chris Christie, Chris Krebs, Sarah Matthews, Mick Mulvaney, Will Hurd, to give her this platform when she was such a contributor. She hosted that insane RNC press conference where they...
By the way, any of those Republicans who just got named by Alyssa Farah are probably like, thanks a lot, man. Yeah, because I want to be a Republican that's approved by Alyssa Farah. I want to be a Republican that The View would consider acceptable.
NBC said, sorry, Sunny, in when they announced the hire, they said, we do need to represent more voices. I agree with that. But you cannot have election deniers being given these types of roles in major network news. She was someone that, continues to actually plant while saying she believes President Biden was elected fairly, also kind of towing the line with some stories about things that weren't right. And when you have 60 court cases that say there was no evidence otherwise, you have to come. Questioning election is fine.
Yeah, that's a lie. There aren't 60 court cases that said there was no evidence of misdeeds during the 2020 election. You had court cases where the judges said, listen, you either don't have standing here, or there's no jurisdiction here, or we can't move forward from this because I'm not in a position to overturn an election. That's not the same as saying there's no evidence. And by the way, they're behaving as though the 2020 presidential election was conducted in some sort of pristine, perfect way. Are you kidding me? First of all, I don't remember Ronna McDaniel being this tip of the spear on so-called election denial. But I do remember her saying, this is an unprecedented election with ballot processes we have never done before in the history of our country. Do you know why she said that? Because it's true. And all of the protocols they put in place because of the pandemic, the vast amounts of mail-in ballots and the changes in how a mail-in ballot was accepted or not from just the last election until that one, where 2 years before a mail-in ballot would have been rejected, but suddenly in 2020, oh no, you can accept that mail-in ballot, it's fine. And we're not allowed to say, well, wait a minute, what changed? The drop boxes all around the place where you're dropping off a ballot as if it's clothes that you're donating to homeless veterans. The multiple ballots that you were delivered, that were pushed to you in the mail that you didn't request, but they were pushed to you. And if you went to an apartment building, you saw stacks of ballots that could be mailed in, just sitting there on a table waiting for the residents of that apartment building to pick up, because the post office was too lazy to put them into the mailboxes. And I could go on and on and on, and everything I said is 100% fact checkable and true. And all of those things were done because we had to have social distancing at the polling places because of COVID-19. All of those things were pushed through as new protocols for the election because we couldn't have people standing in line and passing the virus back and forth to each other if they weren't maintaining 8 feet or 6 feet or whatever it was they had to maintain. And that protocol, the 6-foot social distancing protocol that motivated all of those changes in the way we've always done elections in this country, that protocol was a complete and total fraud. The 6-foot social distancing mandate that was implemented nationwide that triggered these unprecedented voting protocols that had never been done before in this country, and please God will never be done again. That protocol was just hatched out of thin air. You know how I know that? Anthony Fauci said it. Anthony Fauci said he doesn't know where it came from. Am I suddenly an election denier and I'm not welcome on the panel at The View? God, I hope so. Let's let Sonny Hostin have the final reasonable word on this. As such champions of first, and I do love that they're all like, well, it's true, we do need more voices on the panel, but just not the voices that we don't like or disagree with. It's like you either want more voices or you don't, ladies. But no, they still want to be in charge of what those voices are allowed to say. So this whole fraudulent argument on behalf of free speech is completely rooted in a lie from the very beginning. Oh, don't get me wrong. I agree that we need more representation and more voices here. But I and my friends want to be the ones who decide what those voices can actually say. Then you're not really interested. Maybe you do want more voices, but you don't want to hear what those voices have to say. And honestly, that's kind of the root of it, isn't it?
There was also other sketchy things that happened, and she was a direct part of it. You know, I think when journalism is shrinking, especially on linear television, to pay a woman like that $300,000 is obscene. And let's remember that she was the person involved in the 2020 phone call to pressure Michigan County officials to not certify the vote from the Detroit area in particular. Detroit, the Detroit population is 77.8% Black.
I am shocked that Sonny Hostin decided to inject race into the conversation. It's true. Wayne County, Michigan, where I was born, is predominantly a Black voting community. It's also where the majority of the votes are. You remove Wayne County, Michigan from the equation, and Donald Trump won the state. There was an intense scrutiny on the Detroit area and Wayne County in particular, not because the voters are Black, it's because the voters are numerous. And it's a lot easier to steal an election. But it's okay, Sonny. That won't be the case in this next election. No, they'll be looking a little outside the city of Detroit. It's going to be Dearborn, Michigan. That's all they care about now. You've lost some moxie there, Sonny, you and your friends, while you weren't looking. You've dropped one more tier down on the intersectionality ladder that is the power base of the Democratic Party. Sorry.